morning edition of the show, and today we're going to talk about politics, pop culture, comedy, some oddities as well. So I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope you'll also share it with other people on Facebook, and likewise share it on your timeline, share it with friends, and say, hey man, here's this guy. He just does this place, and he does this show in his house right here in lovely Kansas City, Missouri. Actually, I'm in Kansas. So let's start the show with what's going on in the world. Obviously, the Iranian strike on a U.S. military base was the talk of yesterday, and still is to some degree today. We're going to get into some shocking comments from Representative Ilhan Omar in just 1 second. Also show you what Iraq did with what Iran did with the military base and how much damage was done. There's still some debate as to whether they did it on purpose, whether they purposely whiffed, in other words, or if actually this was absolute ineptitude on the part of the Iranian military. I haven't made up my mind yet. But yesterday, in case you didn't see it, this was the president. I'm not going to run the entire. I'm not going to run the entire speech, but I think the first thing he said out of his mouth he didn't even say good morning, everybody. He didn't say welcome to the press, welcome to this, welcome to that, which a lot of times president is want to do. He did this.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon.
Okay. Now, some people are debating why Iran backed down so quickly. Why Iran did such a limp-wristed, just inept attack on a U.S. military base. And I can think of actually 35 reasons for that. And here they are. There's one of them anyway. It is the most badass military aircraft in the entire world. And here they are. The President of the United States actually tweeted this picture out, some of these pictures out. Okay, this is a little slideshow of the F-35. There they all lined up, ready to go. This had a big impact on Iraq. Also, the fact that the president shipped out 5 B-52 bombers to be stationed off the coast. All right, the small island over there. I'm trying to remember what it is. It's not coming to me right now, but there is a small island, and we sent 5 B-52 bombers and 35 of these bad boys. And Iran has nothing like this. Iran has nothing like this in their arsenal, and this is one of the reasons why we saw such a terrible response by Iran. I'm going to show you some before and after photos of what Iran did in their big revenge scenario. They were going to come back and they were going to hit us big time, and they were talking about revenge, and I'll get to some of the footage of that in a second at the Soleimani funeral. They were talking about death to America, chanting death to America, which is not uncommon. And honestly, at this point, I'm just so tired of hearing it. And if you've been on the planet a few years, you're probably tired of hearing it as well. It all started in November of 1979 with the takeover of an American embassy in Tehran. 52 hostages taken, held for 488 days. A limp-wristed president named Jimmy Carter, who was absolutely the worst president ever in the country, I think, at least certainly in recent memory. And he cajoled and he played patty cake with Iran and eventually tried to rescue the hostages, and it was a failed attempt. And then Ronald Reagan said, hey, Iran better release the hostages if I get elected, and he got elected on the day that he was inaugurated. The hostages were released. Here is the damage inflicted by the rain of terror missiles from Iran into Iraq. Okay? So you're seeing the Air Force Base, the American Air Force Base. It's a Ain al-Assad Air Base. Was hit by 10 ballistic missiles. Satellite image shows some damage to the buildings. Now, this isn't obliteration, and these are targeted. Okay, these are targeted. You'll notice the helicopters there, none of them hit. There was a building that was hit. So there was some pretty decent damage done. All right. There was an early warning system, okay? We knew about it in the state of Maryland. They knew about it before it actually happened. And so a lot of people were able to get out. 7 structures appear to have been obliterated in the attack on Wednesday. There were nobody injured, and early warning systems detected incoming ballistic missiles well in advance. Okay, so there's that. There's that. Some people are saying that Iran deliberately failed to hit U.S. bases in Iraq with most of its missiles for fear of escalating conflict. This is according to intelligence sources. Again, the 35 reasons, and I showed you that. This is the first time in 40 years an American president has said, Iran, if you take this a notch further, and they had like 13 scenarios of death for America, and I don't know, a bunch of targets they had already figured out, and Donald Trump said, hey, I've got 52 targets in Iran, and I've got 35 warbirds and some B-52s coming over. So do you think that Iran is going to unleash hell on the United States knowing that is coming? Knowing that is coming. Have you ever seen a president tweet pictures of fighter jets that he is ordering to the Middle East? Have you ever seen that before? He's not screwing around. He's not screwing around. Apparently several missiles that either failed to explode or impact missed their targets. The remains of one rocket was found near the town of Duhok, some 70 miles from the Erbil Air Base, which was the intended target. Okay, Ayatollah al-Khamenei, speaking on Iranian TV shortly after the missiles were launched, described the strikes as a slap and said they are not sufficient for revenge while vowing further action to kick U.S. troops out of the region. Well, you don't have the wherewithal militarily to remove us from the region. Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said the attack was now concluded, praising Iran's proportionate response and adding, we do not seek an escalation of war. Okay. Now, I do believe, now let me see if I can find this. This is Iran. This is one of the foreign ministers of Iran saying that they were going to wipe the U.S. off the planet. Here it is. This is Iran, one Iranian leader.
انتقام از جنایتکاران.
حرف آخر را اول میزنم. انتقام میگیریم. انتقام میگیریم. سخت، محکم، پشیمان کنم.
Have faith and stay calm. He's telling the mob that were bussed in for this funeral.
قاطع و تمام.
It will be decisive and final. All right, it will be decisive and final. I don't think either of those describe the limp-wristed 22 missile attacks, 22 missiles being launched as decisive and final.
کننده مطمئن باشید، آرام باشید.
شخصیت ایمانی شهید سلیمانی گفت او در مقابل دشمن چون کوه استوار و در
But you know, if you ever went to a late night TV show, they have these fluffers who come out and they will hold up signs that say applaud, 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 you know, and they'll flash applaud, applaud. They've got to have something like that at these funerals, because people don't just automatically start chanting things like this. The funeral, by the way, the Iranian people had no choice. They had to attend the thing. And I had heard, I guess Rush Limbaugh was talking about the other day about how they go door to door and say, are you going to the funeral? And if you don't, they pop you. Okay? This is not an organic thing. This is Antifa. All right? And it's been going on forever. And Iran's been doing this forever. And, you know, honestly, I think we finally got a president that just says, you know, F me, F you. Done with it. Now, State Department official told CNN that the message Iran was sending was, we could have done it and we didn't do it. That doesn't make any sense. The sources speaking on anonymity said on Wednesday the Iranians were thought to have targeted the attacks to miss U.S. forces to prevent the crisis from escalating out of control, while still signaling Iranian resolve to retaliate to the U.S. killing of Iranian leader Soleimani. Iranian television claimed that 80 American terrorists were killed. Okay, they were U.S. soldiers, and of course that was rubbish. Pentagon officials reportedly said they believe the Iranian military target areas of Iraq not heavily populated with Americans in order to send a message without killing U.S. personnel. What do you believe, Matthew? You're watching. What do you believe? Prominent analysts suggested Iran may have deliberately pulled its punches because they are fearful of a disproportionate response threatened by Trump if U.S. personnel were killed. And here's the difference. Again, here's the difference. 1979 in Tehran. Iranian students took over the embassy, took hostages. Benghazi, I believe it was Benghazi was 2012. And by the way, General Soleimani was involved in that. He was involved in killing of thousands of Syrian people, responsible for the deaths of 600 American soldiers in Iraq, countless acts of terror. And he was very involved in Syria, and I have no doubt that the attack on the embassy there was directed by him and Iranian forces. 4 Americans died, including the ambassador, and the embassy was taken down. So that's two. Third time's a charm. Soleimani is in town. He's in Baghdad after the failed siege ended. Why was he in town? Well, intelligence sources saying that he was plotting more attacks, but I have no doubt he was there to, I believe, do a victory dance. A premature victory dance. He wanted to be there when the American embassy fell. That didn't happen because it was well fortified. They stopped the attack from happening, and then some Osprey helicopters flew in and landed in the compound full of Marines. And the protesters, not protesters, okay, they're militants. They're military members. It ended. Soleimani saw his victory fade away, headed to the airport. Donald Trump said, "No, you don't," and took him out. Some Democrats are saying that there were no impending threats, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't matter. The killings already happened. Soleimani was involved in killing an American contractor, injuring a bunch of American soldiers just about a month ago. We had retaliated. There had been a little tit for tat between Iran and the United States since then, and then, of course, the embassy. And then Trump said, we're done. Now, according to Annalisa Pertelegello, I'm not even going to bother pronouncing that name. With the attacks, Tehran signaled its capacity and readiness to respond to U.S. attacks, thus saving face, and yet they have been well targeted to avoid fatalities and thus avoid provoking Trump's reaction. And there you go. So, I don't know. What do you think, guys? Right now, I'm leaning toward Iranian absolute incompetence. As before the Persian Gulf War, I don't even remember the Persian Gulf War with George H.W. Bush, when Iraq had invaded Kuwait. We went over and we were told that it was going to be the mother of all battles, and Saddam Hussein's forces would take down the United States, and literally 24 hours later we took them down. It took seconds. We're being told the same thing about Iran, that Iran has 1 million troops and they're ready to go and they're well armed and they're all that. And no, they're not. They may have 1 million troops, but they're not that well armed, and this is the third world hellhole. So don't tell me that this third world hellhole has a first-class military. This is how things are done in the Middle East. They bloviate, they threaten, they shake their fists, they say death to America, death to Israel, and then ultimately, when push comes to shove, they're a bunch of pussies. All right. Here's a little bit from the Soleimani funeral, and again. We're dealing with fanatical people here. This funeral, what country gathers together 1 million people for the funeral of a general who's known to be a terrorist around the world, who is known to kill Iranians who protest against the government, 1,500 of them most recently, and he was also involved in putting down the Iranian Green Revolution, which could have actually resulted in some change and freedom in Iran a couple years ago, but of course Barack Obama didn't do anything about it, and so it was crushed. And we still sent him $151 billion and $1.5 billion in an airplane. Can you imagine the pallets of cash when they arrived? $1.5 billion in a plane. And $150 billion. And what do you suppose that money was used for? Yeah. Against us. Because nothing will placate these people. All right? You wake up tomorrow and you could give them, make sure everybody there has a job, everybody has food, and they would still hate you and want you to die. They want you to die. These fanatics want you to die. They want to take our property, and they want to kill you and enslave your daughters. That's what these nutbags, and they will always be this way. I made this point last night. I think that this is an ideal opportunity for us to get our asses out of the Middle East. Because right now we have the technology to take out targets remotely, quite handily. And we've had this for a while. We don't need boots on the ground anymore. I don't believe it. Listen, I'm not a military expert. We've shown that we can take out a general, a terrorist at an airport using intelligence, using our friends in Iraq to take the guy out remotely. No boots on the ground. We did send boots on the ground to the embassy. We had to. Because we had to protect people who were there. All right, so we needed soldiers who were there to protect the other staff members and whatnot who were at the embassy. All right? If it were an empty embassy or there were a terrorist gathering in the building, blow the sucker up, and that's what we can do from a remote location. And if we need to bring in troops, shock troops, just bring them in. Boom. I think that's the way it's going to go. And I think this president has just sent a very powerful message to the Middle East that he's not going to take it anymore. We aren't going to take it anymore. And I think the American people are very happy about it. Here's a little bit from the funeral the other day.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. مرگ بر آمریکا. مرگ بر آمریکا.
حسین شان ما شهادت افتخار. وای اگر خامنه ای حکم جهادم.
تصاویر تو دنیا داره مخابره میشه همه داد بزنن. وای اگر خامنه ای حکم جهادم دهد.
And here are some of the Iraqi tears, or Iranian tears, I should say, for the death of the general. And honestly, again, who does this? I mentioned that, remember Pope John Paul's funeral a few years ago? John Paul II, he was a glorious pope, unlike the one right now, because he's awful. I could say that, I'm Catholic. This Pope Francis is awful. He's a socialist. He's not inspirational at all, sorry. Don't like this pope. Anyway, JP was great. JP II was great for a variety of different reasons. And consequently, when he died, he shared his decline and his death with the world. And at his funeral, it was a beautiful event. And there was no chanting, and there were no signs. Maybe there might have been a few signs with his face on it, but it wasn't. Everybody has a sign with an expression on it: "Death to America," "Death to whoever." You know, this is just fanaticism. Here's the a little bit more from the.
سرباز مهدی آمد.
حاج قاسم دنبال تابوت حاج قاسم مثل امروز آتش در یدا در اختیار ماست.
They're told, you better act like you're in the greatest state of grief in the history of your entire life, or you're dead. So go out there and act. That's what I believe, 100%. So you've got all of this anger, all of this call for revenge, all of this whatever, and then what I'd like to call Iran's response operation fart in the desert wind, because that's what it was. It was a fart in the wind. And some say, and I believe to some degree, obviously, Iranian media is covered with propaganda, and they said 80 Americans had been killed, and so the people who are not paying attention, the people who are not freedom-loving, they're sated. And they go, okay, all right, we got them. We kicked their butts. Is that going to be really enough? If the Iranian military is really this inept, and I just showed you the evidence in the missile strikes and all this, and the supreme commander, the leader, Khomeini, he's saying that it was a slap. Well, who delivers a slap? Who delivers a slap? What sort of decisive military move is delivering a slap? destroying some buildings. I'm leaning toward the incompetency thing. I'm beginning to think that they're this incompetent. Ilhan Omar, representative who is openly anti-Semitic. She's an awful person. I hate hearing her talk, by the way. She's awful. She's a radical. She was talking yesterday at the White House, and apparently she was joking around while Sheila Jackson-Lee was talking about the conflict in the Middle East and America, the possibility of American troops dying. She was giggling behind her. I don't have the footage of that, but I do have the audio of Ilhan Omar talking about how thoughts of war, and they give her PTSD.
Thank you, Ro. I feel ill a little bit because of everything that is taking place, and I think every time I hear about conversations around war, I find myself being stricken with PTSD.
Okay, just real quick. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder. How do you have post-traumatic stress disorder when nothing has happened to you? First of all, you're an ignoramus, you're a moron, and you're an insult to those who really suffer from it. Let's hear from her again.
Of conversations around war, I find myself being stricken with PTSD, and I find peace knowing that I serve with great advocates for peace and people who have shown courage against war.
We have some really stupid people. We have some really, really, really stupid people in Congress. She is just one of them. I know some very close people in my life who have post-traumatic stress disorder. One who saw his best friend die in combat. One who I first met as a teenager, 16 years old. He's a relative. And then I saw him again a decade later at age 26 after serving in Afghanistan several tours of duty. He wasn't the same person. The bright, funny, jovial, awesome 16-year-old that I saw at a funeral of his father was somebody else. I've got other friends, and those of you who are watching, you know who you are, who suffered greatly because they saw something. They saw something terrible, and maybe saw many things that were just, most of us, humanity, should never see in their lifetime. And they did, and they're dealing with it. I work with a guy whose marriage ended because of the illness that he had after seeing so much. There's only so much that humanity can take. And this cow of Satan, Ilhan Omar, who is a rabid anti-Semite, Rashida Tlaib's also a rabid anti-Semite. There is something wrong with this woman. There is something that she is hiding from our country. She is an enemy of the state, I believe personally. I believe that she does not have the best interests of the country as founded in mind, and she does not represent anyone in this country. And for her to say that she has PTSD at the thought of war is an insult. Hello, Greg. How are you this morning, my brother? Good to see you're watching. Please share with others. I decided to do a little bit early. I did a show last night, and I had a couple technical issues, so I wanted to make sure they were all ironed out, and they were really freaking awesome. Really, really freaking awesome. All right, I'm not going to play. I was going to show you the video footage of the Iranian missile strike. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and show it to you. Just a little bit here. This was the Iranian missiles taking off and landing in different locations. And I mean, honestly, if this is Iran, if this is what Iran has to offer, if this is what we're supposed to be afraid of, then we have nothing to fear, because 22 missiles, most of them missed the target, and thank goodness we had early warning. This morning I was watching Fox News, and there was a reporter from the Middle East, and he said that Iran wanted to kill Americans. They wanted to kill Americans. So if they wanted to kill Americans, they did a really lousy job of it. Okay, so if they wanted to kill Americans and this is what happened, they are completely inept and they are not well equipped to do battle with the United States. And did you notice the last couple of weeks it was all about war with the United States? It was all about wiping America off the face of the earth. It was going to happen. And then they do a slap. They do a slap. All right. Iran claims the Boeing crash that claimed 177 lives hours after the missile attack on the U.S. base was caused by an engine fire. Okay? Was caused by an engine fire. Let me show you the jet crashing. So here's some footage of the jet. Somebody recording it on their phone.
هواپیما آتیش گرفته. شهریار فردوسیه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. خدای خود کمک کن.
Unfortunately, it's not being really covered by the news much. I don't believe Iran deliberately shot down that plane. I believe they accidentally shot down that plane. You've had missiles being launched from Tehran toward the U.S. military base, and well, not from Tehran, but from Iranian territory, and they missed their targets largely. They missed their targets largely. Would it surprise you at all that one of these might have actually tracked a plane accidentally taking off from Tehran airport? And that's where it took off. That's where the plane took off, from Tehran's airport. So literally it gets into the sky, within like 10 miles of the airport and is immediately shot down. I think that these imbeciles who, 22 missiles, most of them missed. I think these imbeciles accidentally shot down a jetliner. They're not turning over the black box. That should be very obvious that this was not an accident. And if it was not necessarily an accident, at least it was a mistake. Meaning that they're launching missiles haphazardly. They're going to go after an American missile base. They missed most of the targets. Some say deliberately, some say not. If you saw the video earlier, you saw buildings were obliterated. Nobody was killed. So obviously they were trying to hit something. They just did a very bad job of it. And do you suppose one of those missiles might have accidentally tracked a plane departing nearby and taken it down? That's what I think. Here's a picture of the plane, by the way. Some of the wreckage on the ground. And looky. You usually on a plane that's suffering some sort of mechanical failure, you don't see shrapnel going through the wing. Okay, see that all there? Those little red circles? Those are holes in the plane. That doesn't generally happen as the plane is falling because of some sort of a mechanical issue. So let's just go ahead and end that right now and just say the plane was shot down either accidentally or on purpose. I would venture to say probably accidentally, because regardless of whether Iran is a third world, 5th century hellhole, they still have to have some sort of commerce. And oddly enough, planes actually do routinely fly out of Tehran. And the moment that something like this happens and it's revealed as being deliberate, everything shuts down for the country of Iran. So I believe they didn't do this on purpose. I do believe they did it by accident. Do you disagree? You can write me, carsonontheradio@gmail.com, carsonontheradio@gmail.com. I want to mention something real quick here. One of the sponsors of the show is one of my absolute favorite products. I love it. If you know me, you know I'm a foodie. Pardon me. They're Dot's Pretzels, okay? D-O-T-S, D-O-T''S, Dot. Woman named Dot came up with these pretzels. North Dakota. Started making them. And they're just fantastic. I mean, they're more expensive than a regular pretzel. I'll just tell you right now. They're more expensive than a regular pretzel, and they're worth every friggin' penny. Because they're buttery, and they're garlicky, and they are maybe a little oniony. And if you dare put mustard on these pretzels and you're around me, I will smack them out of your hand, and then I will pick it up off the floor and eat it myself. Because you do not put pretzels, you don't do anything with these. These are perfect pretzels the way they are. They're available in stores everywhere or online. Just look up Dot's Pretzels. DOT', yes. You can order them online, or if you live in the I-29 corridor in the Midwest, everything from Fargo all the way down to Kansas City and beyond. They have 3 plants now. One of them is in Lenexa, Kansas. One of them is in North Dakota. One of them is in the Phoenix area. So they are growing by leaps and bounds. They are amazing. If you get a chance to try Dots Pretzels, do so. You can find them in the Kansas City area in all True Value stores. I know that. And now they're all in grocery stores, everything from Hen House to Price Chopper. And they're growing by leaps and bounds, and they're absolutely incredible. Get some. If you don't have them in a store near you, order them online. Order them online. Dots Pretzels absolutely kick booty. They really do. All right. Did you see let me see if I can find this. The devil horns. The devil horns over the Persian Gulf. This was a partial solar eclipse the other day, and a photographer, Elias Chestoise, caught it. And there it is. Isn't that crazy? I don't think it obviously is Satan looming over the Gulf, but it is a pretty crazy picture. This photographer said he knew it was coming, but at sunrise he had the chance to capture the phenomena. And so there you go. It caused a light-bending mirage seen near the surface of the ocean that looks like the devil going, okay, whatever. Let's move on to some other stuff, shall we? And I've got some light stuff coming up before the end of the show, including Uber flying taxis. It's coming, guys. It's coming sooner than you think. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Let's talk a little about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is a hot mess. I mean, really messed up dude. Here's a guy who's 49 years old. He stole his brother's identity, rented a car, wrecked the car, left his brother's badge in the car with crack paraphernalia. He was booted from the military for doing cocaine. He knocked up a stripper. There she is, right there. She's a stripper, and he's a mess. And oddly enough, Burisma, a gas company in the Ukraine, decided that this mess should be on their board of directors and get $50,000 a month after the vice president was appointed the chancellor for anti-corruption in Ukraine. And then a month later, Hunter Biden gets on the board for Burisma. Judge Holly Meyer in the middle there said that DNA testing determined that Robert Hunter Biden is the father of London Roberts' child with near scientific certainty. So he's married, by the way, to a 32-year-old. Who the hell is married to Hunter Biden? Who the hell would marry Hunter Biden, honestly? Money, right? Isn't it all about the money? It's got to be all about the money. Because this guy is a creep, knocking up a stripper. And he went to this gentleman's club in Washington, D.C., where he used credit cards that had no name on them. Yeah. And they told him one time, they said, if you're doing any drugs in here, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Because somebody went in and they smelled what they thought was, it smelled like burnt styrofoam. Now, I'm not a big crack smoker, but apparently that's exactly what crack smells like. It smells like burnt styrofoam. So the guy is a frigging mess. He is under investigation for a variety of different things. And if the news media were honest, and they aren't, the guy would be going on trial. Okay. Remember the Cub Calf kids? The Cub Calf kids who go to Washington, D.C. for a Right to Life rally there. Just so happens that they were there for another rally was there as well as a Native American Indigenous Peoples March was there. American Indian leader Nathan Phillips, who's if he's an American Indian leader, then the American Indian nation he's in a lot of trouble because he's a drunk loser. He's a drunk, toothless loser. And oddly, didn't he just kind of disappeared? He's suddenly he's a Native American leader, right? And he plays victim on television because he approached a group of white kids wearing MAGA hats and they smirked at him. That wasn't the case. Here's the footage. They were wearing these MAGA hats, were being taunted by a radical black activist group. I think it's the Black Israelites or something. Anyway, the Black Hebrew Israelites are there, a recognized hate group, and they are a hate group. They were being bullied, attacked, confronted, called homophobic names. And these are kids. These are kids. These are high school kids being called the most foul things you could possibly imagine by this group of black Hebrew Israelites. And rather than this drunk loser who's supposedly a Native American leader who has no teeth, instead of confronting the black Hebrew Israelites, realizes that the position of power is to actually go against the kids. So he brings his entourage over to the kids, gets in their face, and this is the thing that like the Antifa does. They put a bullhorn in your face and they scream at you, and they get this close to you and they scream at you, and that is assault. Okay, when you do that, that is an assault. That is an assault on the senses. It is not a physical assault. It is an assault on the senses. And if you get that bullhorn in my face, I'm gonna. Here is this brave Native American leader who's a drunk loser approaching the Cov-Cath kids. Still shots showing Nick Sandmann with a smile on his face led to the American media going back crap crazy. CNN, MSNBC, all of the usual players, the New York Times, Washington Post, all of them going crazy over the white supremacist kids who were going after the Native American shaman and hero, even though he's a homeless loser. Well, Nick Sandmann's family had to move temporarily because of threats of violence. Imagine this as a kid who's just standing there and this guy gets in his face. Just standing there, and one still shot of the kid smiling is declared a smirk and an act of disrespect and racism. He had to drop out of school briefly, and his parents basically said, we're not going to take this. They'd been seeking $275 million in damages from CNN over their coverage of the confrontation. It was a field trip to, it was just last year, this time last year is when it was. Court filing says that CNN and multiple broadcasts and online articles falsely accused Sandmann of instigating a threatening confrontation with several African-American men, the Hebrew Israelites, which is a lie, and subsequently investigating a threatening confrontation with Native Americans who were in the midst of a prayer following the Indigenous Peoples March to Capitol Hill. In fact, it was Nicholas and his Cov-Cath classmates who were bullied, attacked, and confronted with racist and homophobic threats and slurs and threats of violence by the black Hebrew Israelites, a recognized hate group. They had to move. He couldn't attend school. People in the media and celebrities said that they should. Somebody said they should board up the school and burn it down with everybody inside. They also plan to sue Gannett, owners of the Inquirer in Cincinnati. And a lawsuit will be brought before the judge in the next 60 days. CNN settled out of court. Why? Because of the expose that would have occurred, the lie that it would have been actually shown, which of course the media wouldn't cover, to avoid the embarrassment, to avoid massive monetary damages and losing ultimately in court, which they obviously saw they were going to do. So there you go. I hope he got him real good. And I hope they learned a lesson, but they haven't. ABC has deleted a misleading tweet, apparently came out Tuesday, depicting the wildfires in Australia. Issued a a correction. Here's the problem. Right now we're hearing, in Australia, we're hearing that global warming has caused these massive wildfires. And these wildfires are horrendous. Don't get me wrong. They are awful. There are animals dying, and it makes me sad because you got koala bears coming out drinking out of water bottles from people passing by, or kangaroos coming out, burnt to a crisp, barely able to walk and dying. It's awful. 20 homes have been destroyed, I believe. Several people have died, and here's the problem. While this has all been happening, while all of this fire has been happening, and all of this blaming of climate change is the reason why over 200 people have been arrested for arson. Over 200 people in the state of Australia have been arrested for arson. And I would contend that these people are trying to foment and trying to create a narrative that global warming is causing massive fires in Australia. This is what environmental groups like ELF are doing. I think it's the Environmental Liberation Front. And they destroy ski resorts and they burn down buildings and all sorts of stuff. But this is the kind of a tactic that we see on the left, where damage will be done and then something is blamed for it. So it's meant to basically forward a narrative that global warming is destroying the world. Here's the map that ABC had presented. Look at the fires. Look at the fires all over. And of course, this is Australia superimposed over the United States of America. And this was taken down because ABC had to admit that it was misleading. Here's an actual map of the fires. Okay? And by the way, those dots are gigantic. So the parts of Australia that are impacted are much smaller than that. However, it is a pretty big deal, right? Obviously it's a pretty big deal. 200 arson arrests. Do you suppose there are 200 dots on this map? Do you suppose? I'm thinking there could be. The tweet received backlash, with many noting that the map appeared to show all of Australia on fire. The wildfires have been going since September and scorched an area 2 times the state of Maryland. ABC issued the subsequent tweet with a correction after deleting the original. A superimposed map of Australia over the United States shows the hotspots around the country as a massive wildfires have spread down under. Over 130 fires are still burning in South Wales alone. And again, according to this article, some of the fires are believed to have been deliberately started, at least 200 of them. Because 200 people have been arrested for arson. Okay. I want to mention another sponsor of the show, and I love these guys. Pit Barrel Cookers, ladies and gentlemen. Pit Barrel Cookers. There's one right there. That's a Pit Barrel Classic. Look how cool that is right there. It's awesome. Pit Barrel Cookers are, they look like a barrel. And on these either handles made out of horseshoes, and then there's a top with a horseshoe handle as well. And you put your wood, your coal, whatever in the bottom, your charcoal in the bottom. There's a little vent on the bottom there, and you open it according to what altitude you're at. And honestly, you just light your fire and just go. It'll maintain temperature beautifully, whether you're smoking meats, whether you're doing ribs, and they've got these meat hooks that you can hang the ribs on, or the pork butt on, or the whatever on, or you can put the corn on the cob. They've got a holder for corn on the cob, all of this stuff. It's really cool. So you can use it as a slow cooker, as a smoker, which I love, by the way, or you can use it as a grill. You can use it as a grill, and you can have this beautiful classic. It's gigantic. It's marvelous. About $300. $300 is going to last you forever, too. Amazing. Created by Noah and Amber Glanville. Noah Glanville had served several tours. I believe it was in Afghanistan. Came back to the U.S. and some veterans made his troop barbecue, and he said, I know I'm home. And he built this glorious cooker. Pitbarrelcookers.com, pitbarrelcookers.com. They've got little ones. They've got big ones. They've got all the accessories. They've got gloves. They've got seasoning. They've got everything. It is absolutely marvelous. Pitbarrelcooker.com. Just Google it and learn a little bit. And if you just have a grill, consider a pit barrel, because they are amazing. A couple other notes here. Chelsea Clinton has raked in $9 million for serving on the board of IAC Investments, a firm that is controlled by Hillary Clinton's friend Barry Diller, who is a billionaire. Yeah. She's 39 years old. She's been on the IAC board of directors since 2011, receives about $50,000 retainer plus stock, which apparently has increased from $7.2 million in June to $8.95 million. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful to have never done anything in your life, never built anything in your life, to just have it laid at your feet? You know, just because your mom and dad or whoever. I've never experienced that, unfortunately. Her biography on the IAC website touts her work with the Clinton Foundation, which folded right after Hillary Clinton lost the election. And where did the money go? Her work with the Clinton. What did the Clinton Foundation do? They did nothing. They were a slush fund. They got $150 billion from Russian oligarchs following the Uranium One deal, which allowed Russia to have 25% of American uranium. Blah, blah, blah. You know, you've heard it. She also had a brief stint as a special correspondent on NBC from November 2011 through August 2014, which said she had an annual salary of $600,000. $600,000 for her work on NBC as a special correspondent. And how many reports did you see her do? Did she do dozens of them? Was she like Scott Pelley? You know? Yeah, I never saw any of them. This is cool. Let's move on from politics because there's some really, really cool stuff happening. We've been talking about flying cars forever, right? We've been talking about flying cars forever. And now Uber, let me see if I can find this. I'm not sure I've got this. Hold on a second. I want to show you this. It's pretty cool. Uber is going to be having flying taxis very soon, okay? It's going to happen. Uber is teaming with, who is it? Tesla to make these flying taxis. This is Blade Runner, okay? This is Fifth Element, all right? This is, here we go. Here is Uber and Hyundai, I should say. It's Hyundai. Here's the car, okay? This is not a car. It's a plane. And this is the car that Hyundai and Uber are apparently working on. Now, I don't think this is going to be the one right here because it's huge. It's got a massive wingspan. You've got to worry about where to land. There are much smaller versions of this available. This is a prototype. I can't believe that this would be an Uber car. But this product right here, this Hyundai and Uber compilation, will hold 4 people and some, their gear and fly about 60 miles. Apparently, they've been working steady toward a goal of launching Uber Air by 2023. By 2023. Uber Air. 2023, guys? That's 3 years from now. Can you imagine? Can you imagine flying taxis 3 years from now? And I've seen many versions of this in the media. And I believe that it's coming. And it's coming a lot faster than we thought it would. And it's amazing. We live in a glorious time. I'm sure that Leonardo da Vinci said we lived in a glorious time. I'm sure that Albert Einstein said we live in a glorious time. But, well, man, we have got an explosion of knowledge the world has never seen going on right now, and we're here for it. We're here for it. This in our lifetime, in the last 11 or 12 years, this came around. This came around. You know what this is? You know what this is? This is not a phone. This is a supercomputer with the access to the Library of Alexandria times a billion. Anything you want to know is right here. If you want to know how to travel across the country and not get lost, if you want to research anything, if you want to watch entertaining videos, if you want to game. And then, of course, there's the thing where you call people. So, supercomputer with a phone app. That's what this is all about. It's a supercomputer with a phone app. This is only 12 years old. This phone isn't, actually. This phone is like 4 years old, and it's ancient. We live in a glorious time, man. We live in a glorious time. Oh, I got to share this. This is kind of interesting. The other night, Seth Meyers actually told the truth. We know that late night TV is populated with leftists. If you watch Stephen Colbert, he's a prime example. He's a tool. Stephen Colbert is a tool. He's the guy who said that Donald Trump's mouth is a holder for Vladimir Putin's penis. And that was supposedly funny, I guess. That was vitriolic, awful, vulgar, sickening. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's Seth Meyers actually speaking the truth about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, of course, is an enemy of the 1%, even though for some reason, like so many in Washington, D.C., he has never built anything. He worked, I think, freelance doing carpentry, but I think he probably just was, he doesn't even have formal training in it, so I think he was just trying to pay for his weed, you know. Anyway, he's not really built anything. He's never invented anything. He's always had a really big, loud mouth. He's always told people how to live their lives. He wants you to live in a smaller house. He wants you to drive an unsafe car. He wants you to have poison light bulbs in your house. He doesn't want you to eat meat. He wants you to fly coach, if you fly at all. He wants to take away your health care and give it all let the government take over health care. He wants a Green New Deal, all of this stuff, and yet he's considering flying private jets during his campaign coming up.
Bernie Sanders is reportedly considering using private jets to fly to early primary states during President Trump's impeachment trial before returning to Washington to resume work in the morning. Do you know how crazy that is? Bernie Sanders might have to use a private jet. This is a guy who thinks even boarding Group B is for the 1%.
It's true, but this is how he's lived his life. This is how elitists in Washington, D.C. live their lives. You drive an unsafe car, I'll ride in a motorcade of SUVs. You fly in coach, I'll fly a private jet. That's the way it always has been. That's the reason why the most rich counties in America surround Washington, D.C., because once you move there, once you get in, you're set. You're set, and then you can tell the little people you fly over how to live their lives. That's just the way it is. And oh my God, Seth Meyers actually had a joke that had some truth to it. Just crazy how that happens. Coming up, a toddler's death-defying walk. Oh, my Lord. Why mom should not have the keys to the Tesla. And a clever hack on how to peel an egg, a hard-boiled egg, in like 8 seconds, flawlessly. I want to share the video because it's gone viral. It's gone crazy. I don't know how people do the viral thing. It just happens. But anyway, that's coming up here on the show. This is pretty cool. If you were wealthy enough, if you became very wealthy in a hurry, and maybe you're a football player, Raiders running back Josh Jacobs posted a video to Instagram the moment he gave his father Marty a new home in Tulsa. He just completed his rookie season, 4-year deal, $12 million, 24th overall pick in the NFL. When he was a kid, dad and mom split. Dad he said, and this is according to Jacobs, he says, my father would give my mom a stack of money. She would go out and spend it, and we'd be eating at Salvation Army food. I would ask her how she could go spend that money and not have good food for us to eat. She didn't like that, how I rebelled and spoke up, so she kicked me out. While his 4 siblings stayed with Lachelle Jacobs moved in with Marty, just as plans to rent a 2-bedroom apartment were falling through. The only remaining option was Marty's SUV, okay, which is a Chevy Suburban. He drive around at night, and while the player, I was talking about, Josh, would sleep, Dad would stay awake in the front seat with a gun in his hand. Josh said, I remember seeing him not sleep. It's crazy because I didn't notice that I was sleeping in the car. I was just thinking that I was falling asleep and waking up. I didn't think anything about it because I felt safe. He would just drive around until he found a place to park. Lachelle eventually relinquished custody of Josh's 4 siblings, joined Marty, who had found another 2-bedroom apartment. When I got to home after court, I put some pallets on the floor and then went into my room and closed the door. I prayed to God and just said, I have them now, so what do? The answer I heard back was pretty clear. I had to protect their destiny. The family continued to struggle. Josh began to play football. Josh became an NFL player. Josh bought Dad a house. Here's the moment. There's the balloons, welcome home. He has no ID. He's pulling up to a house, he's thinking it's his son's house. This is when Dad found out.
Yo, it's red. Why you trying not to cry, dude? Why you not trying to cry, dude? You always trying to cry. You already crying. It already came out.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Tesla Model X cost about $80,000. This video shows a woman making a serious mistake after dropping off 3 girls and parking her Tesla Model X. I believe this happened in Salt Lake City. Yes, the video was uploaded by Meg Jensen, Salt Lake City last week, with the caption, "My mom in her Tesla versus the garage. Which will win?" Here's the painful video. We're home. Don't forget to put down the gull-wing doors. Is mom driving? I don't know if mom's driving or if it's autonomous, but yeah, not good. Dad's gonna be mad when he gets home. Did you see the cars in there? There was like a classic '65 Mustang on a lift. Those people have some money. Money. Here's something now. What would you do if you were looking across the way at an apartment building and you saw a toddler walking on the ledge of an adjacent building? This is amazing, and I believe this took place in Brazil. A girl climbed out the window before walking on a ledge in Playa Paraíso, wherever that is. Tenerife. I don't know where that is. I don't know where that is, what country it is. But anyway, what would you do? Because you wouldn't want to yell. You wouldn't. You can't go, "Hey, stop!" Because you're going to scare the kid. The kid's going to fall. Fortunately, the kid didn't fall. Mom was in the shower. Watch this. And by the way, your butt's going to clench up a little bit when you watch it. It's just going to clench right that, and it's completely involuntary. And here it is.
Erwan, ça paraît. Ouais. T'as pas perdu des trucs, toi, là? Non, c'est pas bon. Oh, non.
I'm just going to take a walk. This is Tyler.
Oui, bien sûr.
Oh, my Lord. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. Up here, you see this? It says support Rob Carson on Patreon at Rob Carson Show. Support Rob Carson on Patreon, Rob Carson Show. What it is Patreon is a website that allows you to crowdfund as an artist or whatever. It allows people to subscribe and say, "Hey, man, I'll give you $5 a month to continue this." I'm trying to do that. I'd like to get about $6,000 a month, $7,000 a month, then I could just do this full time. Do my cooking show. I do a show about food called Sound Bites with Rob Carson, and it would allow me to do this and entertain you and inform you and all that stuff. Because obviously I'm not Stephen Colbert, and obviously I'm not Rush Limbaugh. I'm just a guy doing a show at his house. I've done terrestrial radio in the past, hope to return to it eventually, but unfortunately there are several people in terrestrial radio who are not helping. Let's just put it that way. They're just not helping. So if you could help me out on Patreon, that would be huge. And if you could share with other people, patreon.com, and just look up Rob Carson Show. So you want to see how to peel an egg in 8 seconds? You want to see that? Because, peeling an egg is a pain in the butt. Trying to peel an egg is an absolute pain in the butt. Let me find it here. Why do I not have it here? I showed this last night. A lot of people went nuts over it. Clip. Peel an egg. Here it is. Peel an egg. So this is how you peel a hard-boiled egg in 8 seconds. Now, normally peeling a hard-boiled egg, you got to run it under water, and then half the time the egg's going to stick to it. You're going to end divots in the egg, and it's going to be terrible. It's going to look awful, and you're going to have to make egg salad out of it and all the other. Here it is. Here's how you do it without any of that. Kaboom. How cool is that? Okay, there you go. You learned something today. Other than, that Iran is completely inept. You learned something today. I want to thank my sponsors again, Pit Barrel Cooker. Pit Barrel Cooker is absolutely awesome. PitBarrelCooker.com. Also, let's not forget Dodge Pretzels. They are absolutely amazing. If you can't get them in a store, order them online. Keep them in your cabinet. You're going to want them in your cabinet because they're absolutely glorious, glorious pretzels. Also, one more thing right here. I've got a line of politically incorrect swag. A friend of mine named Sam Cangelosi, former illustrator, graphic designer for Hallmark, has taken my designs and turned them into really, really cool, or my ideas and turned them into really cool designs, like Socialism Sucks, like Biden in 2020 that looks like he's grabbing around you as it was a woman. Adorable, deplorable. I don't care that you're offended with a smiley face. Veganism is an eating disorder, one of my favorites. Trump in 2020, and of course Hillary in 20 never. Now, for those of you just listening, you can't see these, but if you go to teepublic.com, teepublic.com, and look up Conserva Tees with 2 E's, Conserva Tees with 2 E's, you can see all of these designs. Order them on a t-shirt, a hoodie, a onesie, your coffee mug, phone case, laptop case, mouse pad, all available there. And they're really cool designs. We're working on stuff all the time. So if you could check that out, that would be huge, huge, huge. In the meantime, I've got to go to work. Thank you for watching me, guys. You can follow me on this Facebook page, Rob Carson. I did have a page called Rob Carson Show, but Facebook is blocking me from access to the page and being able to publish on that page. So I have to use my personal page, which is Rob Carson. So you can check it out here. Also, Range Broadcasting. I'm going to show you where you're going to be able to watch the show and listen to the show, and hopefully very soon be able to make my return to iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Plus, Google Play, SoundCloud, all of those media as well. So in the meantime, God bless America. God bless you. God bless. Thanks for watching. Okay, I'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.